On June 19, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry signed House Bill 71.
This bill mandates the display of the Ten Commandments in every classroom in public, elementary, secondary, and post-education schools in the state of Louisiana.
And a week later, up the road in Oklahoma,
we will be issuing a memo today that every school district will adhere to, which is that every teacher, every classroom in the state will have a Bible in the classroom and will be teaching from the Bible in the classroom.
Howdy friends, I'm Nick Meissner from the Sandpoint Seventh-day Adventist Church with this week's Midweek Message brought by our team of elders. Today we're focusing on the signs of the times that point to the soon return of Christ, which we are so eagerly awaiting. And I believe you just witnessed a couple of examples of just how near Christ's return is. Sadly, there's a lot of confusion about these issues because they sound so good. I mean, who wouldn't want their kids to learn about the Ten Commandments and the Bible and all of this? First, I gotta say that there are a ton of constitutional concerns we could look at, but I think the most powerful issue comes from the very book that is being mandated in these schools, the Bible. You see, Jesus was asked about the Ten Commandments too. He had a lawyer come and ask him which was the greatest commandment. Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." So 10 laws and 2 underlying principles. Our duty to God, which is the first 4 commandments, and our duty to our fellow men, which is the last 6 commandments. Interestingly, God's law was written on 2 tables of stone, illustrating these 2 principles. Now, we turn to the definitive chapter in the Bible on civil government, Romans 13. And in verse 9, it says this, "For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet, and if there is any other commandment, all are summed up in this saying, namely, you shall love your neighbor as yourself." Now, Paul was an expert in the law. But something's missing here. You don't see a single one of the first 4 commandments in this list. You only see commandments from the second table of the law about our duty to our fellow man. Why is the first table of the law completely missing when he's describing the role of the civil government? Paul is making it very clear that the government only has jurisdiction on matters between people. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, he says. This, friends, is the role of the government. But the government has 0 jurisdiction over the first table of the law, those things that are between us and God, such as the first 4 commandments. And you know what? This principle actually comes from Jesus when he said, "Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's." So there are certain things that the government has jurisdiction over, like keeping the peace and things like this. But our duty to God is sacred, and Caesar has 0 jurisdiction over that. And this, friends, is why I am opposed any time the government tries to legislate religious matters, even the ones that I heartily support, like the 10 Commandments or the Bible. Let the church do that. God doesn't need the state's help. That's only going to corrupt the church. It always has, and it always will, and that is not the proper role of government. You know, in Revelation, we read of a time when the powers of darkness are going to try and force everyone's conscience on matters that are between us and God alone. Now is the time for us to understand what God's word says about the role of civil government so that we do what we need to do when that time comes. The Bible is clear. We must obey God rather than man. So let's start practicing this principle in our daily lives. When our boss threatens to fire us unless we do something unethical, obey God rather than man. And if we put this into practice now in the seemingly littler things of life, we're training for the big one when our very life is going to be on the line. If we can't stand up to the pressure now with these smaller matters, how are we going to do it when all the forces of evil are arrayed against us? And in God's strength, we're going to stand under the pressure of the whole world, and we're going to be able to do it because we stood for God in the seemingly little things now. These are incredibly exciting times to be alive, so let's make this week count, and let's stand for what's right. Have a good week.